Senator Ali Ndume calls for an investigation into allegations of NGOs sponsoring terrorism in Nigeria. The call came after United States Congressman Scott Perry accused the United States Agency for International Development (USAID) of financing terror groups like Islamic State and Al-Qaeda, including their local affiliates such as Boko Haram. The controversial advisory body was tasked to cut U.S. government spending, but has been accused of illegally interfering with or stopping the work of several government agencies, including USAID, which is out to stop all its operations globally. Now, joining us to analyze this is Dr. Martin Morgan, a public affairs analyst. Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us on Galaxy TV News.
Yeah, good evening. I think it's nice hearing from you. And just like what we're talking about, I've been arranging discussion going on for a very long time. Because,
all right, thank you so much. So the U.S. recently stopped their assistance to Nigeria on the premise that Nigeria uses the grant to foster terrorism. How do you react to that? What's your take on it?
Well, I think the narrative here is, the optic of the narration is a little bit wrong. Nigeria is not financing terrorism. Rather, what we're trying to say is that possibly the allegation may be a proxy allegation that some of them, they are giving this thing to add to the insurgency and insecurity. Let me tell you, most of these aids we are receiving in Africa are not meant to develop Africa. I have to be very sincere to you. We have, like you are talking about the USAID, for instance, the USID. There is a document known as the Kissinger Report. Kissinger Report of about the security and the duty of some of these support Americans have been giving to the Nigeria and the Third World. The report was published in 1974. And there, the American interest supersedes everything known as the National Security Study Report of 200 by Kissinger. So what we can now say there is that the idea there is that the American interest in third world countries or Nigeria is to render a lot of a high-level instability through proxies. You and I have been hearing why USAID is going down because of some of this control. But we need to really understand that the policy and the aid for humanitarian is different for the economic thing. This is what we should outline. But don't ever allow yourself to be deceived that the aid is going to aid you. How did Al-Qaeda spread up? Al-Qaeda spread up because they started with some of this aid giving from the other side. So we should not be able to tell us that yes, Nigeria is promoting. No, if you said Nigeria is promoting, the narrative is wrong. Rather, they have some proxies who are now using this thing to create a lot of instability in the country. So there will be starvation, there will be hunger, there will be unrest, there will be developmental or social hurt. So that they keep on creating this type of scenario. So for me, like I said, even the multinational complicit of that, the American interest supersedes any other relationship they are having. I know that I've been on most of this field, but let me be very sincere to tell you that there's no aid that is meant to help any third world country, despite the humanitarian and the vulnerability. It's just unfortunate that we find ourselves in a country in a situation whereby there's a poor act of governance and the institutions are not strong. And there's a lot of asset deficit that are not being able to help us to really understand, yes, that this is what we really want. So prioritizing U.S. interests over Nigeria is based on their own human rights. They even abuse your human rights. See the devastation the multinational companies are doing in the Niger Delta. Are you not telling me that the American interest is not there? So they're not helping us. They have some proxies they work with. And it's just unfortunate that we find ourselves in this type of situation. Please, I will advise somebody to go and look at that National Security Report study by Henry Kissinger in 1974. Many successive administrations have used it to devastate Africa. But Trump came in and said that USAID is a group of gangsters and a corrupt center, which they have been used. You understand? And like the congressman said, like coming us to tell us that the Nigerians are using the money funding. No, it can be by their proxies. But the question we keep on asking ourselves is that some of these terrorists act, how are they getting their supplies and ammunitions? Because if Nigeria, with our own rich resources, oil, gas, and natural deposits, if you are stable, The Americans and the European countries will not have anything to do. So they have to keep on causing crisis for us, using some of the proxies. I keep on repeating it. So they should not be able to come and tell us that the Nigerian government is no. They may have their proxy agree, but then we need to strengthen our own institution.
So we have to understand that the gravity, the weight of the accusation is quite big. So what evidence do you think they might have had that convinced them of their claim? What evidence do you think they have to that claim?
Well, you know, this type of claim is that, let me be very frank with you. Each embassy or high commission in your country, they work on intel. They have their agents who are intel. Some of these program managers, you see, they are there as intelligent officers. So if they are now working based on this type of, it's a very weighty allegation. It's not only Nigeria alone they are talking about. So they are telling you that even some of these areas you're having a high level of instability is what they are doing. But now the question is that how do we prove ourselves that no, that is not the allegation, or rather they have their process. It's the issue of half a dozen and 6. How do we put it through? It's a very difficult diplomacy that we are here to manage. And for me, most of the crises we are having in third world is the interest of the West. I'm telling you, Nigeria with our own resources, we don't need foreign aid.
We've become too dependent on this foreign aid. But in the real sense, do we as a nation need to depend on this foreign aid to fund our project? And what do you think we can do to strengthen our economy?
Our economy needs to be strengthened by diversification. Our economy needs to be strengthened by strong institutions. Our institutions here, in terms of the judiciary, are being more personalized than the interest of how the institution ought to be. There are too many sacred cows in the system who are stronger than the institutions. Therefore, we are finding it very difficult when there are some of these weighty allegations. They wave it by the side, maybe for political reason, ethnic reason, religious reason. But let me be very, very sincere with you guys that most of the NGO, foreign NGOs you see operating in Africa, even in Nigeria, they have their own composite interests. The vulnerability is what you are creating, what we call demand creations in economics. They make you to feel that we want to come and help you. We are not helping you. The Western institution, Brentwood Institution, World Bank, and the IMF, they are not meant for Africa. So if you put all those elements to that 8, but the issue there is how do we do our accountability, for instance, in malaria, tuberculosis, and HIV and other diseases that we manage that they are supporting. It's just that some of these program managers who are indigenous program managers, they become very richer and fatter than what the program they are managing. That is the problem we have, because there's no proper what we call PSAMS accountability in the project. They cook a lot of books. They should be able to tell us. So for me, Trump coming to that type of situation is not making us to, it's a lot sort of a reawakening us in Africa or in Nigeria to really check our books. Let us start asking all the program managers, malaria, tuberculosis, AIDS, HIV, and other neglected tropical diseases, polio and the vaccines, and they should come and give us a proper accountability what they have done with some of this funding. That's the question we keep on asking ourselves. Then, why is this insecurity in Nigeria taking so much over a decade? These are some of these posed questions we are supposed to ask. If the congressman is saying so, because Tom has come to review, it's for us to now look back into our book and readdress our situation. We need to really be more creative.
Okay, all right. We really thank you so much for contributing in our news at this time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
All right, that's Dr. Martin Morgan, a public affairs analyst.